Hello, everybody. The pandemic has shown us the harsh realities of our existence. And to face the uncertainty, we need to better prepare ourselves. I welcome you all today to today's event on the theme Another Brick in the Wall, where we welcome individuals who are bringing change and advocating inclusivity and innovation in the field of psychology, mental health, and neurodiversity. The theme for this year's Women's Day is officially Gender Equality for a Sustainable Tomorrow. However, taking this a step ahead, we plan the event to celebrate not only gender equality, but also inclusion and diversity for a sustainable tomorrow. In every society with time, there arise needs which force us to reshape our thinking, our behavior, and our actions. This applies to current uncertain and highly volatile times, which have shown us the importance of modifying our stand on kind of education, importance of mental health, and need to be more compassionate and empathetic. I once read a poem by Robert Frost, and I would like to quote a few lines from it today. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So here we all are sitting together from online platforms, being together just to make a difference. With this, I would like to welcome our speakers who too have chosen a different path and bringing changes in the field of education, psychology, and mental health. We have with us today Dr. Susheen Razdan, a renowned neurologist from Jammu. Sir, if you can wave a hi to everybody. We have Brigadier Dr. M. Srinivasan, Director, Narsi Monjay Institute of Management Studies. Ms. Shreya Malik, clinical psychologist and art therapist. Ms. Soumya Rashid, clinical psychologist and a rehab psychologist. And Ms. Shelley Rena, ICF Associate Certified Coach. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. With this, I welcome Sunaina Tikku, founder, CEO of Brainpreneurs, to share her thoughts on today's event.
Hello, everyone. So it's great pleasure to be here. And today it's like I have been traveling this last week and I got an opportunity to be here at Jammu. So thanks, Pallavi, for the nice introduction. Today, I'm really excited that all of us are here. And I know we have, spoken offline, online, with one-on-one with each other. The intent today is, although we are doing it, very close to Women's Day, but the basic intent is to talk about what each one of you has done differently to manage a change in your sphere of work. And in fact, all of us also, we are trying to do something different, something meaningful, which is in our sphere of influence. So I would like to spend a few moments on, what we do. And I'm just sharing my screen. Once it's visible, just let me know. And it's so nice to have all of you here. We will talk a little more about, what we have been doing and what can be done differently in a moment. But I thought it's important for those who don't know us to understand who we are. So is my screen visible?
Yes.
Great.
Ma'am, you'd like to go on to PowerPoint slideshow mode.
Yeah, I would just. I have been using a, just help me here. I think it is full screen here, right? Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. So Brainpreneurs was founded sometime in 2018, and the main aim was always, our vision has been to give holistic development to individuals, to students, and we always wanted to understand, what are the real, I would say, what are the real requirements that are, that are needed, physical, mental, emotional, and social, to sustain a healthier life. So we started off with something called Experiential Learning Center, but we realized very soon that inclusion is very important. And in 2019, we did meet a set of, I would say, a set of children, a set of individuals who had differently, who had special needs. And when we saw these children and adults, I think it just took us a couple of months to shape up that we need to do something called Child Development Center. We need to do some more work in mental health. And that's how we opened up Child Development Center in 2019. So our aim has always been to bring education and health together. It is, and that is why we call it an inclusive experiential learning center, and also a development center, because the main aim here is to unleash the potential of the children or the individuals whom we meet. So who are there people who do these changes? Are none other than a team of experts and educators and our clinicians together. So educators, mostly we have, special educators. We do have a lot of focus on new skills like robotics. We do have a lot of, focus on skills that are required, the 21st century skills that we call. And therefore, we have even a cognitive research scientist with us. And along with these educators, we have set of clinicians like clinical psychologists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, all of them together with these educators cater to the needs of our children. Now, because it was always too diverse, and there were too many, I would say, too many things that we had to cater to. Therefore, we divided ourselves into 4 verticals. Child Development Center being one vertical, Experiential Learning Center, Mental Health and Well-being, and Consulting. Now, what does this help in? There is, and today our topic is on diversity and inclusion. So what it helps us is by, developing these verticals, we are able to cater to the needs of the society. What I mean by that is, many a times it's not just the set of few child development centers or few schools or few educators are able to reach out to maximum people, and our approachability and accessibility is very important. So that is why the consulting branch we made up, where we are going and meeting schools, we are going and meeting universities, we are meeting doctors, hospitals, just to see that how we can get this inclusive setup, not only within Brainpreneurs, but we are also able to, set these inclusive setups in other spheres, in hospitals, in schools, in universities. So we did have, a privilege of working with more than 2,500 children. And we I'm giving these statistics only from one of our verticals, Child Development Center, because that is the one where our most, I would say 80% of our work and 80% of our staff is dedicated to this vertical. So we have worked with around 2,500 children, and as you can see, it's not about that autism or these invisible illnesses or neurological disorders or an increase, but I would say now there are ways of diagnosing them. And as you can see from this 2 data points, that around 51% of the children whom we have catered to, 51% are around autistic. And we have seen a lot of ADHD, developmental delays, speech issues, and all these neurological disorders have been seen. And additionally, our major work, as you can see, has been in the age group of 0 to 7 years. Now, the reason I'm sharing these statistics is that this is just about a small area that we are catering to. So these centers are in a state in India called Jammu and Kashmir. And there are few, although we are catering pan-India, and there are around few double-digit numbers which come from other states as well. But we are catering to a very, very minuscule population, and still we can see that there is a requirement of interventions all across. So the main intent here was just to help this group understand that there is a need, and need of the hour is to cater to the to understand neurological disorders and do a lot of interventions and acceptance. There's a whole set of things that we have to cater to, but the small statistics will help us understand the extent of the challenge that we have. Now, one of the things that we do is we have strength-based approach. Now, it was so nice that today I was just talking to a few parents, and I was discussing with a few children, and we do have 2 children at our center who are on a spectrum, and they are in grade 5 and grade 7, and you just give them a number and they just multiply. And we have heard a lot about splinter skills, or the high order skills that children or individuals on spectrum have. So that is although they do face challenges in the space of social communication, but they have attention to detail, they do have problem solving skills, they're very strong on process. So I was so glad to figure this out, and although few things are visible, for example these mathematical skills, but few other skills where attention to detail is being seen, I was so glad that we run few tests, we do some strength testing, and maybe during the discussion we'll talk a little bit about it. And what it helped is we are now customizing few programs so that we can bring out these strengths to the wider world, and we can help them channelize these strengths. And these strengths are very important in the space of corporate. So in even in the space of corporates, we all understand there are different kind of roles and responsibilities. So with these set of skills, we can help a person with neurological disorder to work, and that is the main aim. That's the main aim, where we are having these awareness sessions, talking through them, and ensuring that what can we do in our sphere. I always call it in our sphere of influence, because I know there's lots to be done. So one of the things, our intent, and this is a huge progression that we have done just in last 1 year, because we were doing maximum individual sessions. But now that children have been with us for more than a year, and some of them even 2+ years, we have been able to show some progression. We are running at this point in time something called L2 group sessions, and we are also running pre-vocation for some of the children. In fact, I would love to talk around vocational skills, vocational training, if there are any suggestions that you can give as panelists. And this session is going live, so there are a lot of centers like us who can take some kind of an advice from this group of panelists. And the main aim, of course, is towards independent living, and that's how we have progressed during these 2.5 to 3 years, and taken shown children a progression path. This is I told about our inception, 2018. Actually, we started off with something like 5 C's in EI. We always think that this is something which is applicable for neurotypical children or individuals. But again, I'm glad to let you know that we have already started customizing them even for our children who have any kind of neurological disorder. And there are few people who have come to us from developed countries like Australia, and US. And I'm again, they follow, there are so many methodologies, Waldorf, there are methodologies like Greenspan floor. So a lot of such methodologies are there available. And again, I'm so glad to share with this group that we are also on the path of instilling emotional intelligence in our children. So it's important that while we're looking at their strengths, we are able to build their cognition, and we are also helping them in terms of critical thinking, such high order skills. My experience has been that as a group, as set of therapists, we have mostly been following either on ADLs, which we call activities of daily living, or we focus on communication or eye contact. These are the basic things, which are very important. I do not say that it's not important. They're very important, but that stigma that we have and the stereotypical attitude that if I do not give an eye contact means I do not have confidence. I'm sure like many of you relate to this, when in interviews, when people don't give eye contact, we just interpret it as there is no confidence. So all those stigmas, stereotypical way of looking at norms, so-called norms, we need to change them. And this 5Cs and EI model is an attempt. I always call it we are being little disruptive in this space. We are trying to go a little beyond activities of daily living, and proudly letting you know that our therapists are learning this, and they are going step ahead in figuring out various innovative ways of instilling this in our children. This is some small way of just sharing you that when we do oromotor or when we do cognition, we have even tried to do some recycle stuff. Our own team members even work on it, and there are lots of apps and equipments already present. But this is how we do those small changes, and we bring the child's attention and focus to enhance his or her cognitive skill, or even do some things like to enhance critical thinking. This is what I was referring to as level 1, level 2, and level 3. And I would love to hear from all of you any kind of advice that you have for us. So on that note, I would thank each one of you for listening to me, but we have to talk more on it. And I would love to hear from our panelists. I think I should be handing it over back to Pallavi, and we are both together, so we'll see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunaina ma'am. And this gives us an insight that, we all are working towards the same thing, to bring about a change, to make this world a better place for each and everybody. And with this, we would like to start the webinar, and over to Sarnika. She's a research scientist in Brainpreneurs Foundation.
Thank you, Pallavi, for the introduction, and thank you, Sunaina ma'am, for all that information that you just gave us. Now, without wasting any moment, I would like to start today's discussion with Dr. Razdan. So, we've just been through a pandemic, and 2-3 years have been really difficult for all of us, and it has had a huge impact on our lifestyle. We've seen there was a drastic shift from an offline mode to an online mode. According to you, sir, what are some of the key learnings from the pandemic, especially in the field of mental health and uncertainty in the field of education?
Thank you, Sanika. It's nice to be with you again. You see, this pandemic is not yet over. It's still looming in some parts of the world. Some areas are improving, but people have got used to it. And this was a virus which stopped the whole world. It stopped us from moving out of home. We were lockdowns, we were isolated, we were in our homes. Most of us were working from home. Some essential services were still continuing, like health services, people who would supply food and other materials, they would still move, but majority of us were in lockdown. And this was not for a small time, it was a huge time. The way this pandemic has changed is enormous. We still are jittery how to go about life. things have not still opened up. The mental health got deteriorated. There are various studies which have been done in the pandemic that the mental health problems increased by 1/3. Anxieties, distress, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, they increased enormously during the pandemic. And the people who suffered from COVID infection, they also got a lot of issues in acute illness, and then they had a long COVID, which is still continuing. Thousands and thousands are having long COVID symptoms. And people who are healthy, like children, or also had a lot of fear and uncertainty. They also got a lot of mental health problems. Elderly people who were again alone, or people who had economic distress, and who had a lot of things happen. How it has affected future is a lot. We cannot be same as before. You see, 2 years schools were closed, and the children were at home all through. They were having online classes. They had a lot of uncertainty and anxieties about their own health, the health of their parents. They had no group activities which usually happen at school. Now probably they are opening up, and we'll see how it works out there. Same way, universities have opened, organizations have started. We still have to see the impact of this change. But positives which have come out of this pandemic are that mental health has become a central place, or health, as particularly mental health, has become the central place in every country now, world over. It is being taken notice of. And the new mantra is public mental health, not mental health for an individual, but mental health for groups, students, organizations, communities, and people at large. These interventions have informally started. A lot of WHO and other organizations are working on these public mental health approaches and interventions. What, say, Brain Process is doing, it is doing to individuals. Sunana said they are now catering to the communities. This has to be done at a larger scale, so that we have mental well-being. People who are at vulnerable, women especially during adolescence, during pregnancies, during childbirth, have a higher tendency to get mental health problems. They also have a socially, people who live below the poverty line, or adolescents and children who have a lot of issues in parentage and or in schooling. They're highly vulnerable groups. These have to be taken into account, and the term public mental health, PMH, will be most important in coming years or coming months. And this will be done at a political level, at a social level, and at health level, or public health level also. Public health people, social activists, teachers, head of organizations have to be part of this public mental health approach. That I will stop it there. We can come back to it later on.
Thank you so much. I think one very important point you've highlighted here is about education and letting people know, like mental health came into highlight these days. Education, I think, plays a very important role in bringing any kind of change that we want in society. So Srinivasan sir, I have this second question for you, that we're talking about inclusion here today in this webinar, and not just gender inclusion, but in different aspects, such as inclusion in terms of education, inclusion by having a voice for neurodiversity. However, we still see there's a huge gap in what is taught in school and the real life challenges. How do you think we can bridge this gap? Can you share your experiences in this field?
It's been an excellent transition from a military to an academic surrounding. And when you start looking at something called a gap, it is something called, in the management terms, it is called a strategic gap. And two distinct questions are asked. Where are you? Where do you want to be? Between where are you and where do you want to be, we managed to see that there is a gap. This gap is called strategic gap. And this gap needs to be addressed by two things: capacity building, how much of resource, how much of time. So this capacity building is what we are going to discuss. Okay, and this gap, I would put it in simple terms. I have conceived an acronym of NASTY. This gap is absolutely nasty. N is the need. Now that need has to be addressed by us. Ma'am had already mentioned that more than 50% of people are affected by neurodiversity, right? But if that is the kind of prevalence of such a, I can't say a defect, such a challenge, then how are we missing out on this vital 50%? I read a paper written by some gentleman in the Harvard Business Review in 2017, giving us exactly similar lines as to how we can use such people in the industry and in other places for their exceptional talent. Something like what ma'am mentioned about the ability in mathematics. So what I wish to project here is the word nasty is the need. Now that need is applicable for whom? The need is applicable for the industry. Okay. And that industry needs people with empathy. Now, if you look at the people whom we train and prepare them for the industry, then the industry will be able to absorb them. So the need has to be specified by us. What kind of people, what kind of talent are available with us? Okay. Next is the awareness. When you look at awareness, what exactly are we looking at? Awareness for whom? Who are the target audience? The target audience in our case is, first of all, the faculty, the people who teach. The next people whom we look at is the students, the people who receive this kind of teaching. Third is, it's a very key factor, the education regulators. Unless they are tweaked, you are not going to make an influence on how to include this in the education field, be it in school level or be it in college level, higher education. Unless the regulators, if you notice, PhD scholars have to choose their research on social needs. It's a demand by the regulator. So this again should become a demand of the regulator so that all institutes can make it. So this is where the target starts. Next person whom we have to look at as the awareness is the techno guys, the guys who use technology, because this field requires a great deal of investments by such digital software makers exclusive for education. I'm not looking at people who do office automation. Office automation is clerical. Here we are going beyond office automation. We are going to pack it up with some more. So I look at this as the second thing. Next, once the awareness is done, NAS, S is sensitize. Whom do we sensitize and how do we sensitize? Sensitize means programs like what we are doing today, publications by people who are expert on the subject, aligning the focus area and sensitize the surrounding, including those regulators and the students and faculty. It is perseverance of pounding. Keep on repeating it until one day they will use it. If I can give you a personal example, You try and look at it. How many of a news channel are ready with the sign language news? Hardly anybody. Whereas you go to a foreign one, and especially when the prime minister is addressing in a foreign country like New Zealand or Australian news, every time the prime minister speaks, there's one person doing sign language, right? That kind of awareness we should try and imbibe first and make these media try and replicate it. So this is my next thing. And last but not the least, this should start at a very young age. Like children playing with dolls or an ABCD curriculum, they should know that there are others who are not as privileged as them, and they should start including them. Usually what we do as parents, we say, uske paas mat jao. Usko tabiyat theek nahi hai, and then pull our child away. So that kind of thing should be there. So we should start at a young. So this gap and capacity building is very nasty, and we have to address it. I purposely gave a negative term here. I wouldn't mind to make it tasty, but nasty is what we have to do, because we'll add. And if you have to remove the tasty, then put the T there and put the target instead of the need. So we can make it tasty as well. So I thought I should share this with you. And for the question that you asked, this is the best way we can look at it, by listing out what we want, identifying whom we have to do it with, and thirdly, how to do it. And last but not the least, what are our timelines? National new educational policy gives us the impetus to go forward and insist that people include such conditions. So that is where that all-inclusive holistic learning would come into play. So under the education field, if I can bridge this gap, I would put it in this simple terms. I've finished. I'll wait for the next, if there's any other discussion that goes on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. My apologies in advance, but I'm going to steal this idea of nasty and use it for my own purpose. An article will be published. We will acknowledge you. But I think this is such a great idea that you have explained in such clear and pinpointed terms. And I could see Sunena ma'am smiling and all enthusiastic. Ma'am, do you have any comments on that?
I think he spoke our heart.
Yeah. Okay. I think, yeah, that's very true. Okay, so moving ahead, I would come to Shreya now. Shreya with us here. She is an art therapist, and I can vouch she is an amazing art therapist. So in recent times, Shreya, as Dr. Razdan has also highlighted, that importance of mental health has become more important, and people in all became more accepting of psychological aids and therapies. This is a very unconventional path that you chose of art therapy, because usually art, we take it as a hobby, but not in terms of therapeutic relation. So can you share your success stories and what exactly is art therapy and how is it important?
Yes. So hello to everybody. And I think we just had some very amazing discussion here. That one is Srinivasan, I would really like to, again, steal the idea of nasty. And it's very interesting how it has been put up, And another thing that really caught my attention was how we need to start this conversation at a very early age. So since I was into psychology, I was learning about it. So one of my professors, I remember long back, pushed me that, there is hobby one side and there's career one side. But when you can mix both, it becomes another kind of a joy. And he is, he's into music therapy. He practices music therapy at a very, very good level. He has some national and international publications in his name. And that is what inspired me, that why can we not, include art, something that we use in our daily lives as, to recreate ourselves, to something that we really enjoy in terms of therapy. Like, why not use it as a, form of treatment? Why not use it as something that can help us heal ourselves, and maybe not even ourselves, but everybody around? Why also indulging in a part of fun? So what art therapy is not only that we are into a formal, definitely it is a formal environment in which it is done, but on the other hand, exactly to say, art therapy has two types. The one that I use is a visuals art therapy. So that is any kind of art that we do, be it painting, be it coloring, be it mandala, be it paper tearing, any kind of an visual art that you can do comes under this. There is another form of art therapy which is known as creative art therapy, which includes dance as well. So dance is, because it is a movement based thing, so that comes under a different division. So the thing that I use is visual arts therapy. It can be used under various schools and various spectrums across psychology, like we have the different schools of thought. Similarly, art therapy can be practiced across those various schools of thoughts. We have different dimensions, we have the different categories, we have the different techniques across all of those schools of thoughts. So various techniques which can be used for definitely different and varied problems and situations and whatever kind of idea that we would want to address. Like for example, I can give you, we have cognitive behavior therapy, which is I think one of the most renowned therapy schools of thoughts that everybody is I think heard of. So cognitive behavior therapy can also be used in art. And another very interesting example I can give is environmental art therapy. So I'll give you an example of a technique that we use in environmental art therapy, and that is, for example, you just in your garden, how many times have you picked up flowers and maybe decorated something? In the Indian culture, mandala drawing is a very essential part of the Indian culture. नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर में नॉर्दर्न इंडिया में दिवाली में ये यूज होता है, साउथ इंडिया में ये पोंगल में यूज होता है. So all different areas of India use mandala in different festivals that they celebrate, not only because it looks good, but also because it gives an opportunity to an individual to concentrate on something which can increase their level of happiness and bring unity to them. And this is how the concept of mandala actually began by Buddhism. Now coming to the other part, that how do we do it? As I earlier mentioned, that I really liked what Sir said, that it needs to be started at a very young age, and how do we bridge that gap? So we need to first begin with the dialogue between the parents. Another example here I'll put in is that I think just last week itself, I had an opportunity to meet a very renowned physiotherapist, and I was shocked when I entered his, center, not because, there were so many patients, but because I saw a child she was barely, I think, 1 year old, and she was in physiotherapy because of some physical issue in her leg. The doctors had done surgery, but if the parents are not aware, how do they even come to the doctor at such an early age? Whereas on the other hand, I have an example of somebody whom I know within the society. They have a daughter who is, I think, autism. She has. I'm not very sure, and she's had autism, I think, for last 7 to 8 years, and that's untreated. Other than autism, she also has some muscular deformity. So imagine, one side there is a section of parents who are aware, who've taken the child to the doctor when the child is only 1 year of age, and another side, this girl is about, I think, 7-8 years of age, and she has no treatment history at all. So what matters is our level of awareness. It is the awareness. So when we say
It is the problem of inclusion. I would rather term it and rephrase it. It is not the problem of inclusion. It is the problem of exclusion. Because we have excluded our mental health from ourselves in the very first place. And only then we need to include it back. And I think what is the most, though pandemic is the hardest thing that people are going through and still are, but it has been a blessing in disguise for mental health, because people have now at least started talking about it, because now they have been forced to look within themselves and to live within the four walls of the houses. So I think this is something that has been a food for thought for all of us, which has given us an opportunity to not only talk about it, but within the family, but also within the society, that how can we increase the dialogue for it?
Thank you so much, Shreya. I think that was a beautiful thought, especially that what you said, that it's a problem of exclusion, that how we have excluded our mental health and people don't want to talk about it. It's like suffering alone. And it's such a taboo to even discuss something which is related to your mind when it is like one of the most important parts of yourself. Thank you so much. Now, continuing this discussion, Soumya, I want to ask you that how effective are psychological counseling and therapies in dealing with real life situations and the challenges that we face? Soumya, you're on mute. Please.
Okay. First of all, hello to everyone. And it was so nice to hear about different experiences from different experienced persons who have shared their experiences with us. Actually, if we say about psychotherapy, there was a time when people were not okay. If we talk about this thing, psychotherapy, people, there was this taboo, which Shreya was just talking about. There was this taboo. People were not ready to talk about mental health. People were not ready to talk about mental illnesses. But now, I must say that this is a blessing in disguise. Because of this pandemic. Now this psychotherapy, psychology, counseling, these terms have become so much worldwide famous that now everyone from every corner of the world want to have this counseling. They know about the concept of counseling. They know about the concept of psychotherapy. Even अगर हम बात करें previous time में, हमारे पास क्या होता था, if a person came from a rich family or even from poor family, अगर वो mental asylum में enter होते थे for the reason of this counseling, उनको label किया जाता था that they are mad. We don't need to have any contact with them because they are mad. They are not sane people. They are insane, right? But now the same profession, same professionals are working in the same field, but this level of awareness has gone up at this level. Now people are coming to us. People are asking for psychotherapy. People are asking for counseling, because in this pandemic, as we all of know, कि अभी anxiety, depression, PTSD, ये सारी चीजें, these psychological disorders have become so much. ये बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गए हैं. Research has proven it. Research की गई है इन सारी चीजों पे. तो ये पता चला कि इस पैंडेमिक में एंजाइटी बहुत हाई लेवल पे पहुंच गई है. एंड पीपल, if they are not dying with COVID, they are dying with this fear that I am going to die. What will I do? I have got contact with this thing. अगर मुझे अभी कोविड हो गया तो मैं कैसे घर जाऊंगा, मैं कैसे फैमिली में रहूंगा. बिकॉज ऑफ दिस अनसर्टेनिटी, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस कंफ्यूजन, हम लोगों ने क्या कर दिया, हमारी मेंटल हेल्थ बहुत ज्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस्ड हो गई. तो साइकोथेरेपी in itself is a vast field. Psychotherapy बहुत helpful है in dealing with these things, with these disorders, जिसमें जो अभी हमारे current society में जो भी issues है, जो भी problems है, psychotherapy से हम क्या करते हैं, we make people aware about the, first of all, we make people aware about the problem which they are facing. Then we try to elaborate the treatment goals, treatment strategies through which we have to go and through which we have to provide the treatment to the people. लाइक साइकोथेरेपी में हम ये भी कर सकते हैं, 1-to-1 हमारा सेशंस होते हैं. अगर फॉर एग्जांपल कोई पर्सन विद एंजाइटी हमारे पास आ जाते हैं, तो हम उनका 1-to-1 भी सेशन लेते हैं. 1-to-1 उनके साथ डीलिंग होती है. ग्रुप सेशंस होते हैं आजकल बिकॉज ऑफ दिस कोविड. हमारे फैमिली थेरेपी सेशंस बहुत बढ़ गए हैं. वी वर्क विथ होल फैमिली बिकॉज कोविड की वजह से नॉट ओनली वन पर्सन इज इन्फ्लुएंसिंग, एक ही बंदे पे इम्पैक्ट नहीं पड़ रहा है. इफ वन पर्सन इन द फैमिली हैज कॉन्टैक्टेड विद दिस कोविड, तो होल फैमिली जो है उनको एंजाइटी होती है. होल फैमिली इज इन्फ्लुएंस्ड. So as a psychotherapist, we have to deal with all the people who are involved with the person who has contacted with the COVID or any kind of disorder जो भी अभी प्रेजेंट में हमारे यहाँ पे ज्यादा जो जिनकी लेवल बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड, इसलिए मैं बार बार बोल रही हूँ, बिकॉज ऑफ द पैंडेमिक बहुत सारी चीजें अभी ऑन सरफेस आ गई है जो अभी तक हमें पता नहीं थी. अभी या पता थी तो हम उनको एक्नॉलेज नहीं कर रहे थे. नाउ वी आर रेडी टू एक्नॉलेज देम. Now we are acknowledging them and we are accepting those things, and now we are trying to get over from these things.
Right. Thank you so much, Soumya. And one thing I think I really want to highlight about her, she is a brainpreneur. She's a clinical psychologist and a rehab psychologist. And one of the things that I really, which inspires me, and since this event is on for the celebration of Women's Day, that she's the first woman in her family जो इतने higher education पर पहुंची है, and she's like we all feel so proud of her, and she's such an inspiration. We hope that people जो भी हमें देख रहे हैं, they get inspired from her, get inspiration from her, that we can do anything if we really want to do it. So
thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Soumya, you have also highlighted about awareness, and Srinivasan sir, even you talked a lot about awareness and social needs, how it is important for us to educate and keep ourselves upgraded to our social needs. So how do you think, sir, can we do that and keep inculcate values such as compassion and empathy in ourselves and in our children? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Srinivasan.
I think let's try and look at education, the education which all of us have had the opportunity, plus the methodology that we have followed. It is absolutely structured, right? This entire education as of today is influenced by something called Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, Bloom's taxonomy, BT bolte hain usko. This Bloom's taxonomy targets three things. I think Shreya ma'am also mentioned this about cognitive domain, learning by mental intelligence. That's a 6-stage process, don't worry, from rote marna to knowledge creation. So that's a 6-stage process. The next domain in Bloom's taxonomy is psychomotor domain. Psychomotor domains are anything that relates to skills like art, ma'am had mentioned, dance, art, painting, singing, something like that. So that is the psychomotor domain. And the last portion is the affective domain. Affective domain focuses on the levels of inspiration, the motivation, and the passion. Now, these three domains, when you combine, then you go through the process of learning something new. Okay. While when we are in our childhood, most of the process comes by instinct. Standing up, getting up, crawling, moving, all come by instinct. It doesn't go through this entire process. So please remember that the collective process, as you gradually grow, start becoming dominant. Now, like Soumya ma'am also mentioned, we try and look at, as practitioners, we have got all practitioners here. I'll come and give you the importance of practitioners. Practitioners are supposed to focus on which domain, who is immediately ready to learn something new and exploit that. So as practitioners, you identify that first. Clear? I'm not asking you to start teaching them, but the very fact that the aptitude and the intent is known gives us an opportunity to prioritize the areas on which the affected person can be put through. Please remember that. So it's something like if somebody's cognitive domain has not fully developed, Don't start giving them all this, remember this figure, remember that figure, and that. But start exploring. Give them psychometric domain, drawing, painting, something, creativity, something. So, and then gradually nurture that. As the individual gains more and more confidence and this learning curve takes off, exploit it. And this can only happen if there is passion, that is the affected domain. Clear? Now, if these two domains are aligned, then the third domain, which is the cognitive domain, in which you have to remember, you have to understand, you then have to apply. Then you will evaluate, analyze, and create. So this is the full Bloom's taxonomy, 3 distinct domain method of teaching. From what I know and I have experienced being with you all and seeing you all express so well your actual work that you all are doing, I feel we can easily differentiate this, prioritize them. So I have my practitioner, then I prioritize. And the last method is I have to now start implementing it. When I start implementing it, that is when there is recognition coming up. Okay, so when recognition has to come, it is actually, I'll put it in the third P, which is publicity. Okay, first is the practitioner, next is your prioritization, and third is the publicity. Let's not take it lightly. Publicity is not an easy thing. The way you and me do it is not the way the marketing guys do it. So you need specialists, like how you have practitioner to do the prioritization. For publicity, you need specialized people. These publicity people are the brand ambassadors carrying a message forward to increase awareness, to influence the regulators to make their policies, and to influence people and sensitize them. So you and me, how much ever we speak, nobody will listen. You need somebody to publicize. Like cricket ka commentary can only be given by commentators. If I go and sit down and start speaking, nobody.
So you're on mute. I'm so sorry. So you went on mute, I think. So you're on mute. Something happened.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Now I can hear you.
So all of us, if you have to listen to cricket commentary, you want Harsha Bogle only to speak, because if I speak, you won't understand one bit of cricket. You will cricket khel raha, yeah, is he playing hockey? So that is the kind. So you need to have that kind of specialization. So don't take it lightly. I actually honor the practitioner's job in this. People who are working with such people who are doing research with people, they may not be the true people to help them learn. It because you yourself are learning. Let's remember that. So now this learner identifies, yaar, ye priority hai. This area mein they can be focused, and accordingly you give it to those specialists to teach the child. And you be only watching on the improvements. You don't start becoming the person to teach, because you may not be qualified to teach. And the next is, ye sab ho raha hai from the initial stage to the growth stage. Somebody has to help you record and publicize it in the correct way to make a documentary. That's a colloquial way of talking, but that is how we follow. So that means publicity is essential. That publicity is the chap who's going to carry forward this message to the regulators to make education policy. Then you will have teachers training who will be trained, because see, you may be a genius, but you can't teach for nuts. Let's be very clear. So that kind of stuff should also be the next thing. Okay. And then all the empathy, sympathy, everything would come in between. And then we should make a complete package. So please don't look at it. The good work done by practitioners has to be conveyed to the appropriate people. That is my first look at it. Now, in between all this, there is one bystander who is watching all the fun. That is exactly the person who brings in technology for us. How do I bring artificial intelligence into this? How can I make programs for the prioritization that the practitioner has done to be converted into an automation? How do I tweak it for every individual based on their capability? So these things will be add-ons. Now you will create software that is peculiar to the specific problem. That means no two children or no two child will be the same. So you got to teach them differently. So the AI will come and modify itself. It is something like hearing aid. Different people have different adjustment. So like that. So then that frequency once set, you will be in a correct position to roll it out in the form. Yes, I mean, there'll be some people who will be able to tell me how long did it take for Braille scripting and understanding to unfold. I am certain it would have taken at least a century and a half, 150 years it would have taken. But remember, technology can accelerate it to less than 15 years. So that is the power of technology. So when we all collectively we put ourselves together, like Razdan sir also mentioned, it's a global issue. It is not something that is in my house alone. It is across the world. And collectively we have to unite and bring these milestones to happen. And then only this entire process will benefit society. So I specifically feel practitioner, prioritization, publicity is the domain in which is the implementation process. I have spoken, I think, a little bit too much for a small question. I'm sorry.
So that's totally.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you so much for sharing your views. So I think it's so crisp and so concisely put together, each and everything that you say. And I would love to hear Dr. Razdan on this, because I know personally that he's a huge fan of technology. And Sir has just now highlighted that how technology is important if we have to scale this idea and this process, this change throughout the world. So Dr. Razdan, what would you like to say on that?
Look, when you have to do, as I told you, lot of patients, even before COVID, would suffer from mental health problems. 18% of the population, 15 to 18%, and most of them were invisible. Only a small fragment would get treatment, especially who were worse off or who were severe or who had access or who was, as rightly said, whose parents and caregivers were quite tuned to the problem of the person. Now, after this pandemic, things have changed a lot. Now the digital platform is huge. The reach is huge. Even though even the actual meetings got less, but Zoom meetings or digital platform meetings have increased by hundreds of times. Face-to-face meetings, social meetings were less, but digital meetings increased a lot. Telehealth has improved. Telehealth is a term which we use where we can get into touch with people who are suffering due to any illness, not only mental illness, through digital platforms. And this avenue was not explored prior to COVID. It was a must that a patient should come individually to a clinic or to a hospital, overcrowd them, get less time. But by digital health or telehealth, things are changing a lot. We may not call it the best, but I still call it best at times or second best at times. You can connect with every home. The mental health workers, teachers, organization heads can connect with their wards anytime. And vulnerable population can be all the time monitored through their, say, school teachers, through university professors, especially students or workers who are vulnerable. Same way, follow-ups can be done by digital media. Meetings with patients can be done. You can suppose there is a patient in a remote area. The local doctor can take help from a specialist through digital media, and that has made a big change. You will be surprised to know the technology. Prior to COVID, the PCR test was done only at some places in every country to detect the virus antigen. Before COVID, you had PCR. You heard about the PCR is now everybody knows this PCR test. Before COVID, hardly anybody would know this name. Now these tests are done in every state. And the machines which are doing PCR have become very cheap and even mobile. Lot of companies are making these PCR machines available. This machine will not only diagnose COVID, this will diagnose tuberculosis, Zika virus, other influenza, all infections can be diagnosed by these PCR machines. This is a big innovation. I'll call it a diagnostic revolution after COVID. The diagnostics has improved and it has become very cost effective and is present everywhere. These PCR machines can be kept at borders, at airports, where the results will be available in half an hour, 10 minutes. And it was, you couldn't believe that such a thing can be done 5 years back, 4 years back. You couldn't believe that's the thing. That is one. The diagnostics as well. The vaccines, this is all technology. Prior to COVID, any vaccine which was introduced in the world would take years to develop. Even 10 years, 5 years. Here is the technology of mRNA. This is known as mRNA technology. This has revolutionized the discovery of vaccines. We got vaccines within the months, 3 to 6 to 10 months, the vaccines were ready. They took more time because they were to be tested. Otherwise, they would be ready within weeks. And the new variant vaccines will now be available at short notice. Drugs. New drugs are being manufactured by new technologies, and this will change the way we treat infections. And this is also based on mRNA technology, which you have read, all of you have heard. And I think I'll stop it there. You can ask me more questions later on. These PCR machines and vaccine technology will change the way we diagnose and treat diseases in future. Not only COVID, all diseases in future. And this is based on a high, this innovation and revolution in technology.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
And I'll make you one. The
Yes.
mRNAs technology was discovered by all females. It was not negligible. You will be surprised to know most of the AstraZeneca and mRNA technology has been worked out by women who thought this was this had no scope 10 years back. They went into that. Suddenly after COVID, it became so important.
So proud to be
you should read. There's a nice book about the discovery of these vaccines and where these women have been highlighted. Their work has been highlighted.
Thank you, sir.
I've forgotten the names. I should have got those names.
We didn't know even this much. So
No, you should. You go Google the discovery of AstraZeneca and MA has been done by women.
I will definitely.
It's a big thing. This is a big thing.
Yes.
You should all know it. You should all know it. I'll get you the names. And a book has been written on both of them. Book has been written recently. And this PCR technology, मैं बताऊंगा 10, 15, 20 हजार रुपए लगते थे एक टेस्ट को PSR, वो भी दिल्ली जाता था या अब्रॉड जाता, 5-10. Now this can be done at roadside. Any person even can do it roadside. There is a between Uganda and one border. There's a beautiful small story It was a landlocked, and they kept where the entry from other parts of the would enter their country. They kept these PCR machines. Everybody who would enter was to have a test. The way we do it at airports.
Yeah.
And this is a beautiful way of surveillance to prevent a spread of infections. Because you do it in everybody, asymptomatic and symptomatic. You will diagnose everybody. And this PCR test is very sensitive and specific. It's not like other tests, patani, positive and negative. This is very specific. No, thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, sir, for that information. Now, coming back to our theme today, Shreya, I have one more question for you, that how can we become more inclusive as an ecosystem and do more to bring mental health in awareness? There's still so much of taboo. People don't want to talk about it. What should we do so that we can break that wall?
Sir Srinivasan, just a couple of minutes back, he told us that how an expert on the subject should be the person who is advocating and dealing with that issue. And why do I specify this line? I'll tell you is, if in today's date, and this is reality, I'm telling you the ground reality out of my own experience, so it is not here said. If you go to a doctor and you tell them, and you have such and such a client, and the client might require some mental health assistance, so you can refer them to a psychologist, and we can do that for you. The सबसे पहला जवाब आता है, the client can't afford it, they don't have the time for it. Now, what is the space that this doctor is coming from? This doctor is, first of all, he's saying, no, it's not required. And if it is required, then there are no resources for it. You are there, very good, but we can't help you. It's not about helping the clinician. No, it is about helping your own client. This is one part of the story. Second part of the story is there are so many doctors who say, अरे नहीं, हम client की counseling कर देंगे, आपको परेशान होने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. And when you do that, what in turn are you doing it? You are not trying to respect the mental health boundaries of that individual. You're just focusing upon one or two things that you are able to do within your specialty, which is great. But what I always believe in is that we are at the end of the day made of 50% physical health and 50% mental health. So it should be equally when we are going to the doctor and we tell him that, we have such a thing. ऐसे symptoms हैं. They prescribe your medicine and you go forward with it. But when you tell them कि नहीं, आजकल नींद नहीं आ रही है, मन भी बहुत परेशान रहता है, आप ज्यादा सोच रहे होंगे फिर. इतना परेशान मत होइए, इतना मत सोचिए इसके बारे में, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. I mean, that is the first statement of denial everybody has to throw. So I think this is one thing that we as not only clinical psychologists, but across the medical field, and this is one part of the story of the medical field, the teachers, the principals, the students, all the institutions, the organizations, they need to be okay with it, that if somebody is not fine, we have to accept it. We first can't deny it. It is, what has happened is, within so many years of stereotype and the taboo involved, we have become functioned and accustomed to the saying, nahi, it's okay, aisa kuch nahi hai. So we have to change the dialogue. And the pandemic has given us that opportunity. The dialogue has started, which is great. So the level at which now the intervention is required is that how the schools can, instead of, not accepting children from the various diversion areas, should start, accepting them within the institutes and letting them play and grow with each other. As I also told you in the previous, point, that it is not about inclusion, it is about the exclusion. We need to stop ourselves from that. Inclusion apne aap ho jayega. So the subject matters is not only how we can become an expert, Yes, we are an expert into certain area. That's great. We can always polish ourselves and grow. But if that is not our area of expertise, or if that's not our line, it's always good to refer, even as a fellow clinician or as an interchanged line altogether. And intervention is what is of importance. जब एक डॉक्टर को अपनी डॉक्टरेट डिग्री मिलती है, what is the oath that they take? It is that I would prioritize my client. So here, that is exactly that we need to follow. Whatever you're practicing is hats off to you, but we need to prioritize the space from which the client is coming to us. Because one, it is not easy talking about mental health, living in the, I would say genre of taboo. So when we start including, that is when the dialogue would change into action. Because now it's time, the dialogue has started. Now it's also time we begin enacting in the same way. I'll point out another thing here. And in the discussion earlier, somebody just mentioned how we can include people from the various diversity needs into the professional world. I'm not sure how many of you have heard the name of. It is a huge nationwide chain by the name of Lemon Tree.
Yes.
So it's a very famous chain. And what the work they are doing is very good. They are trying to include not only from people areas of disability, but all like from not only disability is in the mental type, but also physical. They're catering to both. They train the individuals according to what their industry needs are. They assess them. They are linked with multiple organizations who are heading their training. And then on a regular basis, these individuals are coming and working with them as regular employees. You should sometime, if you have, all of us should have a chance, go visit one of the branches of Lemon Tree. You will definitely find, an individual with some or the other mental disability there, for sure. And he is or she is the person who's catering to whatever needs or things you have there, whatever demands you have there in that hotel. They will cater to it. If they can't speak, they have a notepad. They'll ask you to please write it down if it is too complex for them to understand. I mean, it is a meticulous system that they have built in, which is great to see. That is exactly what action is. So yes, action has started, but we need to spread more. Third point I'll come to is technology. So recently I started working with this company, and the name is listen.app, right? So this is a company that caters to not only the mental health needs of an individual like you and I, but also from all stratas of the society. It doesn't mean that you are able to take this session offline or online. You can have a telemental health, as Dr. Razdan just mentioned. What is the importance of telemental health? Aaj ki date mein, a person living in a rural background can also, get this facility. That's just a call away. So technology is helping us build the network, but it is us who will need to enact on it. So inaction has started, dialogue has started, but it definitely needs to spread more. That's all.
Thank you. That's a beautiful thought. I think that Shreya, you have just highlighted for all of us. And I guess all of us will have a lot to take from this webinar. And so final question for today, I have for Shelly ma'am, that you're a coach, and usually what happens is that these dialogues or these discussions and webinars, they get limited to a one-day celebration. So what do you think, how can we take them forward in our lives, and how can we make sure that this doesn't just stay as a one-day celebration and we implement in our lives on a daily basis?
Thanks, Anika. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak. To begin with, since this coaching is a very niche sector, let me briefly summarize what coaching is. So the International Coaching Federation, that is ICF, defines coaching as partnering in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires a person to maximize their personal and professional potential. That is coaching. So as our discussion focuses on how to work in the areas like education, mental health, neurodiversity, its success depends completely on who are either watching this webinar or have volunteered to be a panelist. So now whether we are from these fields or not, but each one of us can really take efforts to bring everlasting impact in our immediate environment and make a better society. So by immediate environment, I mean starting from our own self, then our family, society, and the community we live in. So though like you said, few of us may be this may be, for few of us this may be a progressive thought for a day, and maybe in a week's time we may forget most of the things, but I would really urge everyone out there not to let it become just one time thing. Let each one of us who chose to attend today's webinar take this as a personal responsibility and act in our own little way, in our own individual capacity. Like I would say, like, let's become the brand ambassador for this particular webinar, that all, whatever information we got from here. Amazing insights that we have. And as I was listening to all the panelists here who shared thought-provoking views, ideas, and experiences on mental health, neurodiversity, and education, I, as a coach, believe in the power of asking question to ignite thinking and change. So having said that, I have a few questions for my audience. One, if we agree to most of the views shared here today, that means to some extent, it aligns with our core beliefs and values. Still, where is the roadblock? Second, what is stopping us from adopting certain ideas, practices shared here? Is it a belief based on a strong reasoning, or is it our own creation of our assumptions and imaginations? And third, what is that we need to face or deal with within ourselves for us to able to come out in the open, feel vulnerable confidently, partner, build trust, acknowledge, validate our emotions and experiences first, and then give space for others to do as well. And lastly, what prevents us from realizing this? After all, we are all in this together. Now, we may not have an answer to these questions instantly, but if each one of us internalizes on these thoughts, slowly and gradually, we will be able to see and co-create a change. We will be able to support awareness and eventually create a congenial atmosphere for growth and development in all areas. We just need to focus on bringing a shift in mindset to aid change, which is necessary for anything and for everything. So with that, I thank all the wonderful audiences and panelists, and thanks, Sanika, the dice is yours.
Thank you so much, Shelly ma'am. Quickly, I think we can move to the closing comments as we have a little time left. So Dr. Razdan, any closing comments you have?
I think a group like you should spread the awareness about how to have mental well-being, and you should do. You have digital platforms for it. You can do camps in remote areas. Personal contact with them makes a big difference, and you can talk to authorities who matter, who can develop more, who can help you in developing more child development centers in remote. It's easy to make in a metropolitan city where you get all types of technical people, but to develop it in remote area requires a lot of effort and help from others also. That's one that would be very important to increase the awareness. And secondly, as Shreya ma'am said, even health workers have to be taught how to go about when people come to them for some other ailment. They usually have mild to moderate mental health problems. Don't dismiss it by hand. Kuch nahi hai, tension hai, ye hai, wo hai. Go deep. In fact, that's the most important thing for them. Every disease, even somatic diseases, it has a psychological component, because it's not the disease the person is, it's the person who has a disease, who has different beliefs, who thinks why it has happened, what will happen to him, what will happen to his future, what will happen to his family. These questions always are in his mind, and it's the duty of healthcare workers who are treating for something else to look into these issues and help them, or take help from other people who are experts in this. That's very important. Don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it at hand. Please don't dismiss it. Every whether it's an orthopedician, whether it is a pediatrician, whether it is a surgeon, should take help from mental health experts to alleviate the psychological, cognitive part of the ailment, which hampers him or her more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Srinivasan, sir, closing comments from your side?
Yep, the closing comments is, other than me and sir, rest of the people that I notice here are all women who are performers. So the key value that I notice in all of you is the ability to empathize with the situation. Okay. And that's a rare thing. Don't look at me. I'm a robot. Okay. All my life I have been conditioned for some work. Now I'm conditioned for another work, and I start conditioning my subordinates. So that's a different therapy altogether. Okay. It is known as indoctrination. Okay. So that's a different chapter. But when I look at you all and collectively, I feel you are the best brand ambassadors. And on the eve of International Women's Day, I wish you all the best. This another brick on the wall is yet another stepping stone for achieving greater goals. I mean, there is no end to what we can achieve, but we keep adding those bricks. I compliment the organizers for choosing a excellent theme. In fact, I had a debate with you on the title, if I'm not wrong, and you convinced me. Okay, I'm very hard to convince, so you still convinced me. At the same time, I'm in a different environment and with an open mind to learn new things. Today was an opportunity and a great eye-opener that so many people have shared diverse thoughts and ignited some Kumkaran areas of the mind, which have gone off into a slumber for the last 6 months. So the Kumbhakaran now is awake, so it's going to give you all more work. Please remember those domains and cognitive domains and all those left and right portion of the brains are going to become more active now. Okay, I thank each one of you for giving us this opportunity to be a part of this wonderful dialogue and discourse and discussion. So thank you very much and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Looking forward to any other time when we can contribute in some form. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Razdan, sir, thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Shreya, any closing comments from you?
Closing comments, I think, have all been very well said by Dr. Razdan and Mr. Srinivasan. I mean, it's beautifully put together. I have a paucity of words right now too, because they've, summed it up very well. I think the only thing that I can add here is, because that's the most important here in the mental health field, and especially as just mentioned with today's theme, brick in the wall. what we can be is better advocates for ourselves and for the people around. We need to start advocating in a better way and in a louder way. We need to make ourselves heard to the general crowd in a better, louder way. It is the media which also creates a lot of impact. So the louder we go, the media will have more attention. And when the media has more attention, the common man, that is where the attention is gripped. So I think that is how we can start with it. And let's go forward with that.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. Soumya, any closing comments from you?
I will just say this thing that being a woman, I will say this thing on this precious day, that is to all women, that be open to change. Whatever change comes to your way, be open, accept that with your positive attitude. Come forward if you have any issue. People around you are ready to listen to you. They are ready to help you. Come forward and discuss issues, because there are multiple issues in the families, in the personal lives, where you need help. You're not alone. Everyone is with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soumya. I think it has been a great learning session. And at the end, I think I would just want to say that it's important for us to free ourselves and work towards our own holistic development and for the society as well. I'll also take a moment to mention one more thing, which is not related to the current discussion, but in the light of the recent events, we've all seen the news, what's going on in the world. I think it becomes my responsibility as an individual to speak up, that it is disheartening to see so much of violence that's going on, people who are losing their lives, this destruction of heritage, property, culture, and humanity. And the least we can do is speak for peace and welfare of all the human beings. We pray for all those who have lost their lives in war and hope for a better future ahead. Anyone else who wants to say something is please most welcome to speak on this. Srinivasan, so you might have something to say, I'm pretty sure. So you're
with a military background, my only thing is I look at everything based on something called national interest. Now, like how we are all small families, then we increase ourselves to a society, we become a state, and then we become a nation. Now, what happens in the overall interest of nationality, national interest, is something you cannot define. It is not patriotism alone. There are a large number of factors which gives us. And a decision taken by an elected government or a person whom we have given that power or vested that power is, if that person has taken a decision in the national interest of his country, remember, it always need not be good. Okay. So in that context, it is something like the military might is known as hard power. I think I'm not sure whether I have discussed this earlier. The hard power is like having a big stick. But it is actually the soft power that makes better impact. Remember, the military hardware, the military aeroplanes, the warships and all gives you that big stick. But it is the soft power that makes impact. When the hard power is used, the first to be affected is the soft power. So today, what we are all seeing on TV is the impact of use/misuse of hard power on the soft power. I'm not going to talk about who's right, who's wrong, because all generations, all countries will go through this at some point in time. You had a serious partition in our context. thrusted upon us by a colonial ruler. None of us wanted it, but you had a whole lot of genocide over the last, we have seen it and heard about it in 70 years. So we will not talk about it. So there is a national interest in it. So once it comes down to national interest, it supersedes everything else. People have to sacrifice in the interest of the nation. So you are no longer individual, you are a collective lot which contributes towards the nation's pride, prestige, and I think I should put it as, say, self-respect of the nation. So that is the bottom line. So I will not be judgmental whether Russia is right or Ukraine is right or who's doing it. Now, if you have conflict with your neighbor, his national interest demands what he is doing. Our nation, whatever it does, it is in our national interest that makes us do that. So it's very, very, very thing. Yes, I can shed a tear, but it happens even in our country.
Of course.
Okay. And it has got nothing to do with color of a person, religion of a person, or anything. It is, in fact, we search for life on other planets, but make weapon system which destroys our own people and our own planet. So that is the irony and the dichotomy, the human brain. So come on, psychologists, please do some therapy to make us all be better people.
Thank you so much, sir. I think with this, we end today's session. Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Sanika, and thank you so much, everybody, for making us aware of all the knowledge that you had and shared here with other audiences as well. Just to conclude, I would like to request everybody to ponder on the questions that Ms. Rena had pointed out to us. It's for our own betterment. We need to answer them. We need to ponder on them and then work together as a society. And also there were some points that I would like to highlight as from the speakers, like we need to take care of the public mental health. The approach has to be public mental health because whether we understand this now or not, but the actual thing is that mental health is a subject and we can work on it only when we work on it together. It is not an individualistic approach. So we need to understand that we need to go on to this approach as in public mental health. Second, we need to understand that during this pandemic, we have understood how important technology has been. We have started using technology in our day-to-day life, like these webinars and meetings. We need to introduce technology to promote inclusion, to promote and celebrate diversity as well. We need to make use of this boon called technology for this affair as well. Also, a very beautiful term used, that we need to stop excluding people. And that would actually, create an inclusive environment for all of us. So with that note, thank you so much, everybody, the speakers, the audiences for joining it. And as the topic was another brick in the wall. And as Sir said, let this brick be the stepping stone, the first step towards the ladder of success, towards a better, inclusive and diverse society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Very happy Women's Day to all women out there. And thanks the panelists. Thanks to